You've landed at Spark Launch, the guide star for embracing what it means to be neurodiverse. I'm Mike Cornell, joined by CEO of Spark Launch, Chaya Malavarma. Here, we navigate mental health triumphs and tribulations from all across the spectrum, charting a course to the shared experiences that unite us, and discovering how to embody the unique strengths within neurodivergent and neurotypical alike, igniting your spark and launching it into a better tomorrow. Hello, everyone. I'm Mike.
I'm Chaya.
And welcome to Spark Launch. We're really excited to be here speaking with you on our very first episode. And to really start off, we wanted to explain a bit as to what the podcast is and answer the all-important question of why we're here.
Yeah, I truly believe that the neurodiverse population have so much to offer to this world if we start living in our gifts and strengths that I believe all of us have. And once we start doing that, the challenges are so much easier to handle and overcome. And especially in the time of AI, I feel we have this innate power to take the humanity forward. This is my weird thinking and belief that because we are so intricate and we are so complex that no machine can replace our brain and our mind. And and so but it's important that we live in that brain, right? Live in that complexity of our brain, and once we start doing that and we overcome all those challenges that we have, we will be thriving. And I truly believe we can do that, and that's why I created the company, so that we can get over the challenges, whatever the challenges are, and so, some of them you just accept it and start focusing on gifts and strengths.
Yeah. And we live in a long history where there's 1,000 different arms pulling you away from yourself and who you are and what exactly you're supposed to be doing. And with mental health challenges, so much because we are in opposition to what we're feeling and guilt over what we're supposed to be feeling. There's a lot of supposed in regards to mental health, and specifically with neurodivergency. I know for me, I'm late diagnosed autistic. Still, that the ADHD diagnosis is currently eluding me, but that's only because it's very hard for an adult to get such things. And for me, so much of my life was spent trying to and yearning to be normal. What is normal? Normal is what cultural osmosis has deemed it to be. It's very arbitrary. Yeah, I said something to someone the other night. I was talking about autism and just neurodivergency in general. And she had said, for her, like trying to get diagnosed with something, been curious about it, I should say, said like, where the only thing that throws me off is like, where does just being weird start and where does neurodivergency begin? And my point to her was how the question that really will trip you up is how much of our perception of what weird is has just been neurodivergency the whole time, but it's only just now starting to be understood. So you can chalk yourself up to being weird, or is it neurodivergency? And then how is weird negative? How is neurodivergency negative? Why is weird different?
What a great point. Yeah, we are so used to saying weird, right? So it comes naturally to me to say that I'm weird and different. But there's so much beauty in being weird, because who cares if you're weird or different? What really matters is what you do in this world. And so if we stop focusing on things that don't serve us, especially the methodologies of doing it, or judging ourselves and judging others for who they are, and judging for our weirdness or our own weirdness.
Yes.
We and stop like really focusing on those things and just focus on the impact on what you're doing and how you're showing up in the world, and what work are you leaving behind by being yourselves, by being the beautiful you. I think we will all be our authentic selves and shine from that authentic beauty that we all have, right? This world is built in a way that we are born and then we start focusing externally. For instance, which school we go to, where, which area do you want to live, where do you want to, it's so externally focused that we don't look inside of us. And especially with the neurodivergent population, we all are so internally driven that we need to figure out who we are and what our strengths and what are all those little things that we have to offer, and then go external and start offering that to the world in our own unique, weird ways.
Yes, exactly. It's interesting to me that like autism and all that, like it means, of oneself, but so much of quote unquote treatments for it or therapy for it is about unwinding yourself and moving yourself away. ABBA therapy for autism is, a ABBA therapist tried to connect with me on LinkedIn the other night. I was like, nope, not doing that. And because it's just about that. It's about changing neurodivergency. And I think it's weird that in the naming scheme of things, like etymology-wise, that being of oneself was viewed as negative. But, allistic, being of all, of being with other, that is seen as more positive. But it's so much of our society recommends and cherishes you being sure of yourself and steadfast. But if you actually do that, it is christened as weird and no, you need to get in line. And I've never really understood the dichotomy. And I think that maybe is just something a lot of neurodivergents don't understand because of the way we tend to think in like very straight lined, logical ways, is that we see the invisible lines between what is promoted and then what is actually done. Because to us, based on what's promoted, we should fit in, right? Everyone should actually like us, quote unquote, more based on what we're seeing. But in actual practice, we're shot down for being too much or non-compliant or weird or a little bit off, or we talk too much. And I know for me, for my entire life with masking, not even knowing I was masking, was just like trying to figure out, like, I wanted to embrace myself and who I was and be who I was and see like the power that I held for my own life, but it wasn't getting me anywhere for the things that I needed to help serve me, especially in social aspects. So I spent time masking from kind of one vague personality to another, never quite being myself except with maybe one or two people. I would argue that I haven't really started being myself to my own family until about like 5 years ago.
Wow.
Other than that, I view a lot of me before that as like a weird stranger that I just kind of slipped into the skin of every single morning.
Yeah, I think that happens a lot, right? And we want to get to a place where we are absolutely in love with ourselves. And I didn't introduce myself as being ADHD. I learned the term ADHD when my son got diagnosed with ADHD. And that's when I started looking at all the traits and characteristics. And I realized, oh my God, that's me, every single one of them. And especially my biggest trauma was in just education, studying, because I had this ambition that I wanted to accomplish and be somebody. And every time I sat in front of the books, it just went over my head. I was a constant daydreamer, talking a lot in the class, but at the same time, I was ambitious. So that felt like it was going against the wind. I was not going with the wind, but just against the force. And so that's where my trying to fit in, trying to mask was where I was, but felt uncomfortable. But once I got out of the college years, I managed to get a degree in accounting. Never really enjoyed it, but ever since then, I've tried to embrace myself fully, and it's been a slow journey, but I'm somewhat there, right? So, but it's such a relief to be myself 100%. I don't know if it's 100% because I don't know what else is there, right? We are constantly uncovering, removing all those layers and figuring out what's beneath the surface. And so it feels uncomfortable when you're masking and trying to be somebody who we are not in the inside. And as a child, I remember I always wanted my mother to love me for who I am. She did. She was a great mother, but there was always that thing saying, "Oh, can I just me love me for not because I'm your child, but love me for me." But before that, I think we have to love ourselves, right? I guess we never taught that as in the world to just love ourselves. I think it's a learned skill. It's something that now everybody talks about it because we are such an externally focused, trying to fit in. Even the families are asking their children to fit in. They themselves are trying to fit in to the invisible standards, because who's setting up these rules? Who's setting up these standards? And so it's just so sad that because of that, we feel challenged, especially as the neurodiverse people. But we can change that, right? We can change that. We can at least change that by looking at the problems. I think this is where it begins, to actually acknowledging the pain and start talking about the discomfort, the traumas, and not just living with it. So, and examine the pain and see where it's coming from, and you sit with it and dissect it and just open it up and figure out like every little detail, and then that's where all the answers, you get the answers to move forward.
Yeah.
And that's why it's important to just acknowledge the pain.
Acknowledge it and not do something which I absolutely hate, which is try to swipe it away with unearned positivity or toxic positivity. Or, I think a lot with neurodivergers, our difficulties, we're made to feel kind of guilty about them in a lot of ways, because either, well, I'm speaking as a uninformed neurotypical when I say this, well, you're lower on the spectrum, so you don't have anything to complain about. Or, oh, but, look at all the amazing things your brain can do, like for some sort of Lifetime original movie character or something. Like, no, there's some stuff that really sucks I deal with every single day, and I hate it sometimes. Yeah, there's pros and cons, just like there's pros and cons to being a neurotypical, but don't try to placate me with saying I am not allowed to feel bad about things, either with past trauma or mental health struggles, whatever else. And even if you're just neurotypical but struggling with mental health, one of the best lessons you can learn is to just wade into that pool and deal with what's there. It's okay. You feel your feelings. It's okay to mourn something, even if it's yourself. And it's okay to be frustrated and sad. You have to feel those feelings. Otherwise, they're just going to build up in the back of your head.
Yeah, it's important to feel the feelings, and it's important to sit with them. It's important to process them, because when you process them, you get so many messages, and then you take those messages and you can start implementing them.
Yeah.
And that's how you move forward. But it's important that we acknowledge and we and not deny the pain. Because what happens is if we keep denying it, you keep putting it away, and you can put it away for days, years, decades, and then it will always come back, right? Whatever you're living with it, it's like a baggage. It's you're carrying this 100 pounds of luggage that you're carrying every single day.
Yeah, it's like painting over mold.
Yeah, and but if we because when we look at the pain, whatever that is, there might be some message saying whatever that is, right, to the individual, maybe move in a different direction or do something else. So it's really, really important for us to sit with the pain and even to see where that is coming from. For instance, anxiety. I had a lot of that, and even speaking. So for me to even just come here and speak is a huge deal. My voice was shut off. I truly believe in school because I was this talkative child. I was constantly punished for talking in class. Yeah, horrible punishments. And I didn't know why, right? I had no idea. And then you had to speak a certain way, or the language, for instance, and even just the ums and ahs. Rules like that, right? Rules like that will stop me from being me. And so I had to believe in me, and more importantly as to why we are doing this. And that's where my motivation comes from. Why are we even having this podcast? Why is it so important to talk about mental health? And why especially us? Because we are, first of all, super sensitive people. We all know that there's a lot of emotions and we feel it, and we experience it 100 times more, 1,000 times more. And we carry those emotions with us, and as a result of which, we're not serving ourselves or others, and so it's really important for us to acknowledge that. And so for me, just speaking in my own voice, I needed a huge mission to do that. So when and then I said, okay, I actually had to go to a class to learn how to speak from my heart. And that was just it was beautiful, because that told me I was good enough, whoever I was, whatever I was. And it's the same with everybody, right? We're all good enough just the way we are. But we are always looking for external validation, because somewhere in my childhood, I was told that I needed somebody's approval to be myself, which is so sad. So all my life I've been like, who am I? Who is Chaya? Who is she? And the answers come, I think, in following our heart and doing what we love. And for me, and you, both of us, I know we want to empower this community and help them acknowledge and loving ourselves the way we are. And there's nothing called perfection. Our show is not going to be perfect, right? It's all about...
Oh, Lord, no.
I think authenticity. We want to be as authentic as we are. And I'm sure if I listen to this, I will say, oh, Chaya, you said those words wrong, or you pronounced them incorrectly, or things like that. But I'm allowing myself to make those flaws so that I can be authentic. For me, that is way more important.
It's funny. Like, one of the best things I was ever able to do for myself is I've been podcasting for a very, very, very long time. And I've been editing myself in podcasts for a very, very long time. And at first, I was so self-conscious, because I'm already self-conscious about how I talk most of the time. I talk very autistically. Like, when I finally started hearing other autistic people speak, I was like, whoa, that's like, I cried the first time I heard someone converse in the same like twisted pattern that I converse in, because I was always self-conscious about it. But through years of editing and having to listen to myself, you start out, you edit yourself. So I'm trying to edit out put my words together so they make more sense, at least to me. Because I am very self-conscious, but it turned into so much work. I had to just start accepting how I talk, and then it just became normal. So I still deal with it, but I was able for the most part to separate, like, I'm not stupid because I talk that way. That's just how I talk. And it goes back to kind of what you said, that we're always looking to be as good as somebody else, as another. But we're human beings. We're one single vessel. We are only capable of being as good as we ourselves are capable of being. So we just need to work on that and doing positive things for ourselves. I don't like to say healthy things for ourselves, but in a way that goes towards what we are at our core, each individually.
Yeah. We are good enough. And of course, we have growth, right? So we are here on this planet to learn and grow, to contribute, being ourselves. But that's where the skills are. There's skills to be learned. For instance, executive functioning was a learned skill for me, and but it's not the majority of my job. I'm living in my strengths, but I had to learn it. So it's important we learn it. But just being in our authentic selves feels natural, feels beautiful. I wanted to ask you. You said autistic way of speaking. What does that mean? I'm intrigued by that.
I mean, it's not a homogenous type thing. Though I do think a lot of autistics have like a very unique way of kind of conversing and speaking. I was talking to another autistic yesterday, and we both were talking about our verbiage, as we always tend to use what other people describe as like unnecessary big words or things like that. And to us, it's like that really doesn't have anything to do with like intelligence or us being well read. Just we know the word, and that's the word that goes there. Like, so it doesn't occur to us to not use like the maybe like ridiculous word that hasn't been used in like 200 years. To us, we just know that's what that word means. So it slips in there. But I've heard a lot of fellow autistics who speak very similar to me, which is kind of, it's this stilt stop way of speaking where you're kind of like in a constantly constructing things. You use a lot of fillers. You kind of twist around where you start in one way of going into a sentence, and then you take a left turn, and you're still in the sentence, but you're now putting it together in a completely new way, and then you circle back to how you originally were doing the sentence, and eventually you come at the end of what you were trying to say. And it's very confusing sometimes, I think, for other people to listen, but it's just the way our brain processes information. Like there's a start and stop, and we're kind of like pondering what we're saying. And obviously not everyone has this. But I think each autistic person tends to have a specific, unique way of kind of like their own of speaking and verbalizing. Some maybe talk a little bit faster. I know some speak much slower. I'm very stuttery. I use a lot of filler words, and I go back and forth in speed. Like I'll either talk really fast or I'll ponder myself very slowly for no real reason, honestly. But it makes people think I'm deep in thought, which is pretty cool.
As you're describing that, I feel that's me. So right, I'm like, that's exactly how I talk. I definitely speed up, and I am lost in thought. So I'll ponder. I'll take that side road and pick up a few things. So who knows what I am, right? What else? But it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. But what is great as you're describing that is it's important to know that just having that awareness, my brain wanders is amazing, because in that knowing, there's a lot of self-acceptance, and I for me, I have to, it's important for me to let others know about that. And with my husband, I always tell him, this is the way I speak. This is who I am. I will wander off. I will go off the tangent, because, yeah, it happens. It's fine.
Yeah. Keeps things interesting.
It keeps things interesting.
I made a, not to talk about social media, but I made an Instagram post, like, I think it was like last week or something. And I was about social scripting, like specifically like autistic social scripting. I think so many neurodivergents deal with social scripting, but it was about, I won't go into all of it, but the joke of it, and something that's happened to me on numerous occasions, is whenever I'm like ordering food, and this is either in person or over the phone, though it happens over the phone more often, is I have repeated like what I'm going to say to the person over and over in my head so much that when we start the conversation, I have said, this has actually happened, "Hi, I'm large pizza." And it's just the words get, confused in there, and that's what blurts out. I've been other things too, I haven't been just large pizza. I've been a sub, I've been various culinary delights.
Oh, wow. Yeah, no, that's happened to me. I used to think that I had to speak a certain way, right? So I've spoken to so many other people, and that's the problem that a lot of them face, is that they feel they have to script and say words a certain way, and a lot of energy is spent on just that script that you forget the content. And so, which is what is really most important, is what is it that you want to communicate, and not how you're communicating. And so, yeah, that is where I learned how to drop into the heart space, kind of bypassing the brain, and speak from the heart. We were in, when I went to the workshop, we would break out into these rooms, and other people would actually see me speak and say what they felt. And they all had one or two positive things to talk about. And I had to hear that to believe that I actually spoke with passion. And so it was, that's where we had to learn how to not overthink with the scripting, with the sentences, just drop into the heart space and speak from there. And that's what actually got me here. And I can talk from my heart right now, and things that I'm passionate about.
That's awesome. It tends to be, if you're passionate about it, you have an easier time talking. That's how it's always been for me. I can, we talk about film or literature or something, I'll go off forever and have a perfectly easy time. But if you try to ask me about the weather or some like medical thing, I would just, I literally now sometimes if I have to like call my doctor's office for information, I literally write it out on a pad, because it's the only way I'm able to like stay focused enough in the conversation, because I don't care that much. And I don't want to do it because I don't want to make a phone call.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's so much easier when you work from your passion, right? Talk about things you're passionate about. I don't like to talk about the weather. I don't like to talk about politics. I don't like to talk about so many other things. And so I will not. I won't even attempt to talk about it, and I will not be in that space. Like the weather, sometimes there are days that I can go by without knowing what weather is outside, because I have this whole inner world of a lot of variety and drama and so many interesting things that are happening inside of me.
Yeah,
right? But I don't even notice, like the winter, especially the New England winters. They can, like a month can go by without me even paying attention. So there's a good part to it.
Yes, this might be like a really may have discovered something that's like a really neurodivergent thing, which is the confusion. Why is everyone so obsessed with the weather? Like anytime someone's talking about the weather, like, oh, it's so rainy today. Oh, it's so sunny. Like if it's too hot, it'll bother me. And even then I'll just stay inside. But it's like, yes, we live on Earth. There's weather cycles. Like that's just something that happens. Why are we talking about it? Like I'm self-aware enough to know that is like a super probably neurodivergent thing to to like be complaining about, but I am puzzled by that constantly.
I think it's the small talk, right? It's just doing that small talk for the sake of talking.
It's like there's so many other interesting things to be talking about. We could be talking about this or that or just.
I know. Let's stop talking about the weather and tell me what the problem is. I always want to go behind the layers, and I can actually also see through people's layers, which is another talent or a skill which I'm going to use now. And that's how you and I met. I just instantly knew we could be talking forever. And that's that's a skill. So that's a gift. I don't know where I was headed, but
yeah. Before we've been talking about so much. If anybody is curious, this is actually the most like on topic we've ever managed to stay in one of our conversations. Before we we still have time to talk about it, I wanted you to tell the audience a bit of like what Spark Launch does and what your hopes and dreams for it are.
Yeah. So I was inspired by my own personal story and also helping my son find that spark within us. So my belief is that we all have that light and spark inside of us. And once we start, first we have to find that spark. And once we start living in it, we can overcome challenges. And so I want to use that same thing to help others, to find that spark in other people, in people who feel challenged for whatever reason. And the reason is because we're trying to fit into a world that was not built for us. So to help them overcome challenges. So what Spark Launch right now is offering coaching, one-on-one coaching, because coaching for me is equivalent to meditation. And that's how I overcame a lot of challenges, by going deep inside myself and finding answers to my emotions. And why am I feeling this way? What is all this? And then a lot of it was believing in myself. So there's that internal journey is what the coaches do. Instead of doing it alone, you're doing it with a professional who's been trained to take that internal journey with the client. And so by taking that internal journey, they can examine whatever the problems are and come up with the action plan, the
finding solutions.
And then to move forward from there. So that's, and also I want to start offering workshops and to schools, teaming up with teachers and also workplaces. I was in the corporate world for 22 years, and there are a lot that needs to be done there as well. So it's fun. It's going to be fun. I'm finally, I think, living in my true state.
Yeah, I would definitely say so. I every time you talk about Spark Launch, I'm always get very excited. I love the whole concept behind it, specifically the education stuff, because so much about neurodivergency and education is completely misunderstood.
Yeah.
There is the misunderstanding that autism specifically means learning disability or learning deficiency. That is not true. It is not even close to true. There's, oh boy, I could go on for that for a while. But just tailoring education for the neurodivergent mind to better assist them, because it's just a matter that we learn a little bit differently. We may be a little more autonomous in how we learn as well, which is why we tend to gravitate towards specifically subjects that we'll do on like our spare time more than subjects that are taught, because they're not being taught in a way that stimulates us. Any little thing that is being done there, I'm always very happy to hear. And I know your coaching system is going to be very robust and going to be very much the kind that I strive for and like to both employ and promote. So thank you for Spark Launch and everything that you're doing for that.
Oh, thank you, Mike. I am so happy, first of all, to have met you. And I think it's a divine intervention. I had the way we met. And I am extremely grateful for you to be with me on this journey.
Thank you. And I thank the audience for also joining us on this journey of this very podcast. Hopefully continuing to listen on in future episodes. We'll have lots of different types of content, either discussions. We plan to feature a lot of guests, so be on the lookout for that. Any way you can support us is just greatly appreciated. You can rate and review us wherever you listen to podcasts. Is a wonderful way to give that support with what you're doing, so we continue to make more of that. If you'd be interested in following us personally on Instagram, I'm at follows his ghost. Chaya, where can you find yourself and Spark Launch?
On Instagram, it's the Spark Launch, _Spark Launch, I think. And and you can find the same name on Facebook. I think I'm also on YouTube. I have somebody posting it for me. So on LinkedIn, you can find us there. So I hope you all tune in and promise we're going to not be boring. We don't want to bore ourselves with our content. So, it's going to be fun.
See you next time.